morning. I'm Margaret Weber. I am affiliated, and my history with the Portfolio Advisory Board is I became coordinator of corporate responsibility in 1998 and served in that capacity until 2009. And then a couple of years after that, I served at the PAB board for at least about 4 years, I think. The dedication of resources and a specific office to the work of socially responsible investing. And within the circle of the Interfaith Center on Corporate Responsibility, there were not too many religious congregations who were either able to or did make that commitment. We don't have any expectation that any company is going to be perfect.
Right.
We recognize that as shareholders, we have sort of this divided sense. We want the company to do well. We want the company to benefit us financially. And yet, out of our faith commitment and our commitment to social and economic justice, we also want the common good aspect to be front and center. And so it's a tightrope sometimes, and we may make progress on a certain company and a certain issue. And then out of that dynamic, we might pull back for a while and then come back with a different issue. I mean, I think and then we collaborate, and the other groups might pick up the baton for a certain other aspect. It's a positive. You get positive energy if you don't only focus on how large the issue is. Always keep in mind, this is long-term work. You have to keep nurturing the faith and recognize and recall, well, okay, maybe we didn't get everything on this particular issue, but we lit a candle, and I mean, we can all think of anyway, so we are lighting candles in some cases, or being the canary in the mine, and that's critical. It's significant to me that in so many cases it's been women's congregations, right. Women's religious congregations that have been the lead on critical voices. Mm-hmm. Men's congregations, yes, are part of it, and whole denominations, yes, but I look at whether it's shale, fracking, thank you, or agricultural issues, some of the issues around agribusiness and agriculture, or the guns, or the mining. I mean, women's congregations have been at the forefront, fearlessly, and keeping the sense of the importance of the impact on the communities. It's really an impressive history.
Yes, I was an Adrian Dominican sister living in Seattle, where I still live, and I was directing the Northwest Coalition for Responsible Investment. Like, what did you say was the name of your
coalition?
CRIM.
Indiana.
It's a group of religious communities that use their investments for corporate responsibility. And so in 2004, I was invited by the Portfolio Advisory Board to be on the board. And I was a board member for 9 years, I think, and then the rest of the time was a consultant to the board on corporate responsibility issues. You know, going into the future, those partnerships and collaboration is the way that religious communities are going to continue their mission.
Right.
For over 50 years, ICCR has been around, and you know, over those 50 years, we've built relationships with companies. You know, some of the companies we've worked with for, 20, 30 years. And that's a really important part of our work, too, is the relationship with the companies. And I would have to say that women religious play a really critical role, ICCR, in maintaining those relationships and in doing the work. And I remember early on when I started doing this work, in fact, it was my first month, in 1998, the Sisters of the Holy Names had filed a shareholder resolution with Procter & Gamble, and the Adrian Dominican Sisters had co-filed that, and the resolution was asking Procter & Gamble to stop bleaching pulp with chlorine because of dioxin, etc. And the CEO asked the corporate secretary, what the nuns were concerned about, and the corporate secretary tried to explain, and he said, well, let's go out, let's go see him. So they took their corporate jet to a very small town in eastern Washington, and had a dialogue with us, the corporate secretary and the CEO. And I remember, Margie, you were on the phone for that dialogue, but some of us were in this little conference room. And at lunch, we asked him, he was a very nice man, and we said, why would you come, all this way to talk to us? And he said, well, early in my tenure, when I was a CEO, another CEO told me, if the nuns bring an issue to your boardroom, be sure you pay attention, because I can guarantee it's going to be an issue in 5 years. So he wanted to get ahead of the curve. As we always do when we're going to engage these companies, as you know, we always write a letter first to say what our concern is, and then ask to speak with them. And then if they don't respond, we file a shareholder resolution. And they did not respond to our letter, so we filed a shareholder resolution. And this was in the early 2000s, and a third of the shareholders supported the resolution. And still they didn't talk with us, so we filed it the next year. And again, the vote was the same, about a third of the shareholders. And so then they began talking with us, because we have that relationship with them. I know Walmart's a company we've had a relationship with probably since the 90s. And Net Sinagra, one of our sisters, has been key in that. But when they had the mass shooting in their El Paso store earlier, we had worked with Walmart on, selling handguns, etc. But when that shooting happened, we reached out to, again, ask, how are you doing? How are your employees doing? We're thinking of you. And they responded right back. But then after a while, we went back to them again with that issue about selling guns in their stores. And they did take action then, raising the age and stop selling most types of guns, etc. So I just can't, I've been doing this work for 25 years, and I just can't stress how important having a relationship with the company is, because, we know we get more when, we meet one another. I think it's going to be important to keep adapting to our situation and to the world. And I think that, in the past, religious communities had a lot of people who were in the hospitals and schools and ministries. And now, we're not able to do that. But I think that this is an area, the corporate responsibility, where we can still do it, because we have the investments, and we've found ways to keep doing it even when we didn't have the sister or the layperson we could hire, partnering with others. And I think that, to me, it's very hopeful that the Adrians have devoted a full-time younger sister to this ministry to direct the PAB. I mean, I think that's wonderful, because I think Marlene is doing a great job on both the corporate responsibility and the community investment. So I think that we just have to keep our hand on that plow, and keep going forward and adapting as we need to.
And I'm Pat Zarega, and I have been doing corporate responsibility since 2000 is when I came to ICCR. I was working with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Around 2011, I changed over and have been working with Mercy Investment Services, and for the last decade have been the liaison from Mercy Investments to the Adrian Dominican Sisters and the Portfolio Advisory Board. And it was not only a commitment that you would join ICCR as a member, but that you served. You led dialogues, you led with companies, you served on committees, you served on boards, and very active members of ICCR.
Yes.
I think in the beginning, when I came in 2000, advocacy was there as here's a specific issue, we'd go in with a issue, talk to the company, and then the next year maybe it changes. What Margie was saying is it can flow. One of the things that I have always stood on is that we have a very unique space talking to people, because we can also come with a pastoral role. And I remember every time there's been a flood, when Katrina happened, that one of the first things is to reach out to those companies and say, are you okay? The companies that are in those areas, are you okay? What's going on? let us know that you're doing okay and you're in our thoughts and prayers. But then in the second breath, we also say, and how are you dealing with the community? What's going on in that neighborhood? How can you help? It's happened with COVID recently is, yes, are your employees okay? Is the pandemic hitting you? What can you do in, say, mining communities to help what's going on in that? And so I think as we look over time, it's changed, but there's always been that kind of underlying of our faith commitment and a pastoral role as we talk to people. Proxy voting is also changing these days. We used to be able to very easily say, yes, we're going to support the shareholder resolution, but now there's votes against boards of directors or votes against certain people on the board that are not implementing what we might have asked for. And so I think it's a little bit more technical and takes more time to figure out. The other thing I think that's happened is that there's a push for human rights to become as measurable as some of the environmental pieces. So over the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of growth in the environmental reporting standards that are out there, things that are set. And human rights was always, or that S part of environmental social governance was like, we don't really know, it's mushy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more being done on a lot of different fronts
Mm-hmm.
to measure that and to beef it up.
Yeah.
I think one challenge is there's never a social issue we didn't like to tackle.
Right.
And how do we focus to the point that we know what our resources are to do the work, and we do good work on a narrower, limited area that we can focus on, because we can't do everything and we can't cover everything. We never were able to, but it as issues multiply, it gets harder and harder. And because we're coming from the faith community, we have the ability to bring hope to those situations that feel hopeless.
Right.